Hey Shaman King fans, and welcome back to another episode of What's the Difference, where I compare the various different adaptations of the Shaman King manga, namely the 2001 anime and the 2021 anime. Last time we compared how Yo and his friends trying to stop Hao from taking the crown of Shaman King began. In the original anime, Hao decided to take it by force, bypassing the patch altogether and forcing himself into the place known as the Sacred Land of the Stars, where he would become one with the Great Spirit and make himself Shaman King, with Yo and his friends needing to fight against the forces of Hao in order to make their way to him to stop him. In the manga and newer anime, though, Hao is declared the winner because he just has too much power. Fighting against him would essentially be suicide. And so Yo and his friends decided to go with option B. Fight through the patch officiants to make their way to Hao before he is declared the Shaman King and growing stronger along the way. And so while the two stories diverge very drastically, the objective is still clear. Fight your way to Hao and stop him from ascending to the position of Shaman King. And so we pick up with Manga Volume 31, Chapter 268, Plant, as we are officially in the revamped version of the manga that adds a little bit here and there in order to flesh out certain events, which of course was going to happen because that's where the newer anime is taking a lot of its content from. We're also on the 2001 anime episode 59, Holy Ground of the Stars, and the 2021 anime 47 episode, Plants. So let's jump in and see what's the difference. So we open up with Yo and Silva in the manga and newer anime, clashing again for the first time in a long time, and Silva just really manages to give Yo the business. But Yo, of course, isn't down for the count, and of course Ryu's a little taken aback against what they're going up against. The patch seemed very incredibly powerful, and Ren makes it clear when he was telling Ryu that they didn't want to have to resurrect any of their allies, he wasn't singling just Ryu out. It's all of them. All of them are going to struggle against the patch. This is not going to be easy. Interestingly enough, something that the newer anime leaves out is Ren making the claim that, hey, there's only so much of a boost in power you can actually get by dying. Something I'm actually glad they do bring up. But then Silva says they won't be able to go forward without losing anyone. And in a very uncharacteristic move, he attacks Opachow, only to be saved by Yo. Something is very much up by Silva. And then two members of the patch show up and say, this Silva is because we broke the old one and created a new one. And they're also here to bring Silva back to where he's supposed to be. For some reason, though, the anime doesn't include the fact that Lyserg knows Baron, one of the patch here. I think establishing that connection helps lead into what happens later down the line. A little bit of this familiarity between Lyserg and Baron helps to kind of develop what happens between them later. And Baron and Rainim, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Rahinam, how they talk about they re-educated Silva very violently with the way that they put it. But then they go on to explain about their posts, how there's a path of the king that you have to pass through, various different shrines called plants. There are 10 plants in total, all representative of various different environments that represent each patch officiant. The newer anime also cuts out Ren making it sound like, they're trying to intimidate us, so he wants to intimidate him right back. And they have to fight according to customs. And Silva warns them that they can't stray from the path, or else they'll be lost in an endless labyrinth of a maze. So, kind of very much like the original anime. It's just that you have these cavernous maze instead of a maze of mythical trees. The anime also cuts out a lot of the discussion between Yo, Ren, and Ryu about the fact that, the patch, they're strong. They could tell from a glance. Even Yo knows that deep down, Silva was fighting with regret. that's the only reason why Yo was actually able to stand on his own against him. Silva's far tougher when he's serious, so that there's a lot of beefing up of the skills of the patch that isn't done in the newer anime. And then we see Namari is watching them as they're making their way to his section. We then have chapter 269, nice, Namari's Desert, where more cutout scenes, Lyserg trying to douse which best location to go. Maybe they could just skip over some of the levels, and none of the spirits can proceed forward through any of the walls because it would be dangerous to just lose track of everyone. Ren also realizes that the reason why Silva came out was to warn them. Yo also realizes that they have to get stronger somehow because they're not going to be a match for any of the patch, let alone how at the rate they're at. So Yo asks Abba about what they need to do going forward and how long it takes for the new Shaman King to fully ascend. So Abba says it's about 10 hours. Some of the info is also cut out of the newer anime. That Hao will be put in a death-like trance. The ritual to summon the Great Spirit will take 5 hours. And then there's the time it takes to actually get to the shrine. You have to pass through the various different plants. It's a ritualistic journey, essentially. So Abba knows about the various plants. There's also a cutout of Abba cryptically saying that, the gang will learn about the existence of Mu as they go along. Like there's something significant of this lost continent. But they'll have about 15 hours to make their way. They have to defeat the 10 Apache officiants and get to the Shrine of the King within those 15 hours. Interestingly enough, the anime adds in some extra detail about what they have to do and what they go through in making their way. And then they make their way to the first gate, the desert plant. Meanwhile, in the original anime, everyone is beckoned forth by the Great Spirit and these rays of light, which will lead them to the true path to the Great Spirit, open up. All of Hao's followers proceed as well. And of course, Yo and his friends also go after him. And Jean knows that this is what leads to the holy ground where the Great Spirit exists. So instead of the plants, you basically just have these various different kind of ethereal levels that everyone has to go through. Meanwhile, Jean and Marco, they have other duties to perform. And so battles break out. Meets up with Silva and Caleb. It's pretty interesting to see the patch kind of having this falling out about their duties. In one version, Silva tries to help out directly. In another, he helps out very subtly. Manta ends up encountering Hao. It's interesting too. Hao's interactions with Manta always take different interesting turns throughout the course of both series, but in all versions, Hao has an antagonistic viewpoint towards Manta. Silva's battle starts up. Honestly, that's most of the comparable parts for the original anime. Some of Yo's friends suffer massively in the fights against Hao's minions, but it's not as overwhelming in the same degree as against the patch. Like the patch are just on a whole nother level. So they come across what is essentially a desert and they encounter Namari. They cut out the fact that Namari immediately goes after Ryu because they kind of have a little bit of beef. But then Ren finds the guy annoying, so Namari goes after him next. I guess they go directly after Ren because his abilities can't actually work in a desert. He needs moisture and some form of atmosphere for that. I'm actually interested in the fact that they kind of use actual meteorology in order to inform how both Horo and Ren would be at a disadvantage. But I like the fact that Ryu tries to get stuck in this. And now we're in chapter 270, Desert Fillet. None of Ryu's powers take from atmosphere or anything like that, so he probably have the best chances against Namari. And you get to see Ryu's armored oversoul, something he had initially planned to show off previously before Horo cut off his arms. Namari wants to pretend like he doesn't remember Ryu, but it's obvious they have a bit of a score to settle. And honestly, the way Ryu cuts up Namari's red rope in the manga looks a little bit more like he's cutting up sashimi. But unfortunately, Ryu is kind of outclassed in a desert environment because there's so much mirage play at work. And in the manga, you get more of an explanation that, well, Namari is using the properties of the plant to fight them. He's using the advantages he has in the environment to fight an overwhelming number of adversaries. So he tries to intimidate them to leave, since resurrecting multiple allies, that'll use up a lot of Furyoku, which is something they're trying to avoid. However, Ryu's plan was essentially to sacrifice himself, get Namari to actually use his full power against him. Ryu's essentially using the fact that he's disposable in all of this. So Ryu is annihilated. And unfortunately, they cut out from the manga the moment of respect that Namari actually has for Ryu. In the anime, it's treated like Namari's more dismissive, but in the manga, Namari actually respects how capable Ryu was in this situation, but the result is still the same. This was an opening that Ryu gave to Ren and Horohoro. Now we go into chapter 271, Manaless Victory. Namari feels that this is pointless since they can't use any of their elemental abilities, but Ren and Horohoro feel like there's a contrary to this. Namari sees most of their attacks as desperate, but there was also actually a plan in place, and Ren comes to the conclusion that Namari had counted on everyone else fighting him since he held the advantage in the desert. He thought they would be too smart to actually go after him with people who specifically use elements that are at a disadvantage in this battlefield. But now that he's being attacked by people he didn't think he'd fight, he's caught off guard. He didn't suspect that they would use the water from the small oasis in order to let off one single attack. One single devastating attack, and that's all it takes. They don't comment in the anime about the fact that, despite the fact that he was about to be defeated, Namari seemed to be perfectly fine with being defeated. Like, that's the thing. A lot of the nuances of the patch and their position is kind of being lost in the newer anime. But they still want to bring them back once this is all said and done. And Ren has a newfound respect for Ryu. Meanwhile, at the wreckage where everyone lived, we enter into chapter 272, Making Up, where Anna is holding Manta's dad hostage. We also have Teruko waking up with Hans after she had been resurrected. Hans is lamenting the fact that they've all been resurrected, and everything that happened here will be covered up. And Teruko's just mad that she doesn't get the money, and is also kind of upset that she was seen naked by a man she's not even married to. So Hans proposes to her. It's mostly a spontaneity thing, but moving forward, it's actually a very sweet relationship. It's a very weird situation, but Manta's father wants some time to talk to his son, and you get a little bit of Anna and a whole. There's a little bit of an odd alliance formed between the remainder of Hao's forces and, well, the Asakura family. I mean, by all technical means, Hao has won, and they don't have enough people on their side to really do anything beyond this. And we see some of, basically Hao's followers have been resurrected, all except Peyote and Turbine, who, their bodies were too damaged to be resurrected. There's something up with Hao's followers, essentially. The anime also leaves out some of the details of the plants, where you find out the sun in the desert plant was an artificial light, turbines in the walls to simulate sandstorms. Like, they're just all artificial biospheres, essentially. But Ryu wonders why that he was resurrected, as he feels useless. But he believes in Ryu. But then they're headed to Baron's area, and he feels that while they want to use as little Furyoku as possible is understandable, he feels that it's not the way to go. We now enter into chapter 273, A Heavy Door. Lyserg's starting to have reservations about the fact that they essentially have to kill the patch, which Juggalo is just like, I mean, yeah, you would. Who wouldn't? But Horohoro and even Ren don't really want to dwell on what they have to do or what they've done. I mean, they were the ones who had to kill Namari, so. But I feel that the manga portrays how off-kilter they are about this. It's not just about killing, it's about the fact that some of the patch seem to kind of want them to succeed. And so the way opens, and boom, right there is Byron. And Byron is stupid powerful, as he manages to capture the majority of them instantly. And while Ryu tries to cut free of the webbing, his oversoul is too tough. Ren tries to go in for the attack, and something that really got me off guard is this kills Ren in one hit, in an instant. Honestly, the manga, again, makes it a lot more clear. Chocolove tries to use Machu Picchu in order to create the wirework city in the sky, but Lyserg knows that this would be too much of a heavy load for them. And this is where Lyserg's relationship with Byron actually comes in a bit of handy, because he knows the dude's moves and what he can do overall. His spirit blue net. So far we've had red rope, blue net, and the silver arms. And Lyserg is ready to throw down. But Byron doesn't think he's strong enough. We enter into chapter 274, Patch Song. We are blasting through these chapters, which is something I was hoping wasn't going to happen. The anime's rushing towards the finish. The one thing everyone was worried was going to happen has really come to pass. They're rushing through these final chapters. We see that Ren has already been killed, and Byron mocks how many times Ren has died. And then you see Horo, who is still alive for the moment, and it's very unclear in the anime, but the manga makes it very clear when Byron just kills Horo right then and there. Lyserg starts to lose it, but Yo brings him back, being like, you need to calm down. Attacks made in anger are easy to read. We're counting on you. His web is really tough. The patch have a supernatural strength to them. And the anime doesn't even include the fact that Yo speculates that the Byron that Lyserg is facing might not even be the Byron that he once knew. He's become cold, and Byron explains that yes, the patch have a technique to augment their furyoku called the patch song, a melody that helps to kind of resonate with their spiritual power, increasing it. They forms all these spirit spiders, putting everyone up in this webbing. It's a power used specifically to protect the Shaman King, and it's what they used in order to break Silva. Baron admonishes Namari, thinking that he got cocky in how he did things, and Baron says he will be the one to destroy them all, even Lyserg. But Lyserg's fire burns through Baron's threads, and he knows that Byron is using silk in order to detect movements towards him. Lyserg knows that while Byron might have more power, he still fights the same. Lyserg will fight without a second thought. He will burn Byron in his hellfire, and then Byron is consumed in flames. That's ending the chapter and the episode. So let's see, that was... Whereas before, at most, they've rushed through about 7 chapters within the span of an episode at maximum. Here we've rushed through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope, still 7. So yeah, they're still... They've entered into overdrive though, because there's a lot of explanations that were left out, a lot of little bits and pieces here and there. It's a shame. It really is a shame. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you feel that some of the nuances of how the patch are responding to their defeat shouldn't be left out, or are you just ready for this series to end? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, bell, all that good YouTube stuff, or don't. I ain't your daddy, but I still love you like one. Until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you on the next episode of What's the Difference? Until then, bye-bye.